So next up we have We Go Again. Why do successful entrepreneurs go again? What's different in the second lives? What are the learnings? We heard this so many times yesterday where entrepreneurs have been so successful in selling their businesses, but they all had an itch to do something else and continue and do another business. Zara Nanu created GapSquare. It became a leading, maybe the leading, pay disparity analytics business. She then sold it to Relax. And she's recently launched WorkVue. We'll hear more about both businesses from our next speaker, Zara. Welcome.
Is working?
It is? Oh, yeah.
Is this?
Yeah.
We have, I'm not going to say take off, that'd be bad. So what I'd like to do is to set this in a little bit of context as the business GapSquare that you founded. Talk us about what scale it had built to at the point at which you sought to exit. And then we'll come to that exit process and then on to WorkVue now.
So I'm Zara. I founded GapSquare in 2015 after reading a report from the World Economic Forum that was telling us that it will take 217 years for us to achieve parity between men and women. At the same time, the World Economic Forum was telling us by 2030, most of us will be in self-driving cars, self-driving buses, probably. And NASA was telling us by 2030 we'll be sending people off to Mars. So I was thinking, we're developing tech so that we can be in self-driving cars, waving people off to Mars, and still be 200 years away from achieving parity between men and women at work. And I wanted to set up a company that looks at data and utilizes tech to help understand how we can move and accelerate that process faster. If we can use tech to innovate how we move around better, why not use tech to innovate how we create more fairness and more parity between men and women? We grew the company in Bristol. We were based at the engine shed, and at point of sale, we were about 10 people in the Bristol team.
And sales of?
We had about 50 enterprise customers at the point of acquisition. We have just worth saying that we've never had investment. We've never raised investment, not because we didn't want investment. We just were never able to secure that investment. But what we did always secure is customers. So we had a customer base that included the London Mayor's Office, the London Met Police, Accenture, Condé Nast, IDC. So it was a very impressive playbook of enterprise customers who were with a very strong retention rate and high value ARR licenses for the product.
And pay disparity throughout this century, but particularly over the last few years, has continued to rise in importance. GapSquare, as I would interpret it, and please tell me this is not wholly right, has been seeking to, or is seeking to quantify the problem, to give the tools for businesses to work out where there are gaps and to give comparators across sectors and businesses. Did you personally, or the business, also get involved in trying to explain why the disparity was there and then seeking to actually address that disparity? Or was it much more the diagnostic piece?
Yeah, it was absolutely the diagnostic piece and the education piece, because a lot of the times, particularly with investors, we'd have conversations with investors because we needed to raise the money, and it would always come back to the gender pay gap is a myth. There isn't actually such a thing. Or my wife actually quite enjoys not working and staying at home with the children, so I don't know what the general problem is. So we needed to do not only the diagnostic. Before we even got to the diagnostic, we needed to do a lot of education about what the gender pay gap is, how it's different from other gaps. So actually the main confusion comes in people understanding what the gender pay gap is in the first place. So we have things like equal pay. There's a gap in terms of equal pay. That means people get paid differently for doing absolutely the same job, sometimes even having the same title. And unfortunately, it still happens, even though it's illegal and has been illegal for over 50 years in the UK. Then we have pay disparity.
Sorry, just want to ask one specific point there. It's been illegal for 50 years. Approximately how many prosecutions for that? Is that actually something which is enforced legally through?
It should be enforced legally. So if an employee takes an employer to employment tribunal, they can then they can take their case forward. Unfortunately, over the past 10 years, employment tribunal structures and fees and anything about putting through a case in employment tribunal has become so complex that less and less people do it. But I've seen through data from hundreds of companies in the UK and in the US that actually it happens. It happens more than we think. So that's the basics of like having a product team and having 2 project managers on that product team being paid differently. And when you look at data, the only difference between the 2 of them is that they have a different gender. We also have, and this has been more contentious in the UK and kind of more conversational recently, we have a thing called equal pay for work of equal value, which is more difficult to underpin to some degree because the titles can be different. And we've had the most prominent cases have been cases in employment tribunal that have come from supermarkets where women at the checkouts have been paid less than men in the warehouses. They've won multiple cases in employment tribunal and further down the line, proving that they're actually doing work of equal value for the supermarket and therefore they should be paid the same. So a lot of supermarkets like Asda and Lidl and Sainsbury's are currently going through settlements where they have to pay back a lot of their employees for work they've done over the years. So there are a lot of complexities around it, and it makes sense to look at tech and to start understanding a lot of those complexities.
In a sense, the objectivity of data as a pathfinder. And for your great roster of blue chip clients, then, did you find that they, on the one hand, it's a cultural thing, they wish to be doing it, it's the right thing to do, but did they actually change as a result of the data that you presented them about their own businesses?
Many did change. So what we wanted to create through the GapSquare software is a process by which companies start to own their creation of pay equity. So it's not a consultant who comes in once a year, looks at their data and says, oh, things are quite bad. You need to throw $1 million in here to settle all the pay inequities. We wanted them to have access to a piece of software that empowers them to look at that data on a regular basis so that they can take better decisions when they hire people, when they look at promotions, when they look at how they make restructures, so that they can slowly move towards closing those gaps. And access to that software was making it possible. It makes it possible to a certain degree. We do live in a world that is driven by different metrics, and sometimes fairness isn't top of mind for everyone in terms of those metrics. And at the end of Q1 or at the end of the year, priorities will shift around bottom line. So you could see progress, but perhaps not as fast as I would have wanted to see progress in companies who actually can see why they have those gaps.
So if we pause at this point and just imagine you're owning a business, there's not been external finance, it's in a societally incredibly important area which is rising in importance. Reputation and reach of the business is increasing. There's a variety of strong blue chip clients, many of whom are actually directly responsive. Change, in other words, is happening as a direct result of your analytics. So why sell?
It was just we've always wanted to be bigger. We always wanted to grow faster and actually have an impact on hundreds of companies. And when Relix approached us, that seemed like the best opportunity to actually expand our reach globally, because they're a company of 33,000 people globally. Immediately, we would have had access overnight to teams in New York, across Europe, in Asia, that we wouldn't have had before. So through an impossible investment, or through our kind of scaling through customer growth and business development, it seemed like it would have been a slower trajectory than all of a sudden landing on a platform that's ready to help accelerate our reach.
So the impulse in this case, I mean, we've talked before at EntreConf that success is for entrepreneurs to define. Of course, there's the financial value, of course, that is an element, and it's a pretty key element, but also the opportunity to leverage the success, the insights on a much larger basis on an area which is so vital. Curiously enough, last year's We Go Again was also with a then reasonably fast-growing but not that massive company run by Rupert Lohman, who also sold to Relics. Pure circumstance, I'm sure. But I think in both cases, there's the classic asymmetry of a creator with a business of 10 people or so selling to this enormous company, FTSE, certainly 100, probably FTSE 50 company. Or
15.
50, well, there you go, begins with an F, right up there. What was that process like? What advisors did you have? And how did you approach it thinking, well, they are so much more experienced than I am. They've bought so many other businesses, and you probably haven't sold things previously.
Yeah, so I think the one word comes to mind in terms of how I've approached it, and that is with great naivety, looking back at it. But it was a really interesting process, and I think that naivety played in our favor because we were having conversations with them for a very long time. At no point did I understand that we're moving towards acquisition, towards a conversation and acquisition. So I think that element of me not being fully engaged in the conversation created a bit of a hard to get side, like, oh, they're actually not as interested as we thought they would be. That was by chance, not because we were not interested. And the process was really a lot because as a large company, Relics buys businesses all the time. I'm not surprised someone was sat in this chair who's sold a business to Relics because they are an old publishing business that's trying to move and transform into a data and tech business. And the best way to do that, according to their strategy, is by bringing in a lot of tech solutions that are already built and a lot of tech talent that is in the market. And acquiring this company is one way to do it. But because they are large FTSE 100 company, their process around acquisition is so it's like it's a process. The machine is moving regardless. Like that boulder is going over you. So we had fairly straightforward business. We've never raised investment. We were two co-founders. It was very simple accounts every year. We didn't have any complexities around that, but we had Grant Thornton come in to do the financial audit, and we had to answer questionnaires of 350 questions, many of which I didn't even understand what they're asking. So at one point I had to go back to them and say, either we simplify this, or by the end of the due diligence process, there will not be a business for you to buy.
That latter point, remember, if you own a business and someone wants to buy it, it's up to you what to disclose and when. And of course, it's absolutely up to you to focus on running a business because no deal is a deal until it's a deal.
Absolutely.
Curious enough, you mentioned an old publishing business. It was the first job I had in magazine publishing was for Reed Business Publishing, which is what became Relics. And yes, it already was a massive behemoth then. And it's remarkable to see how acquisitive it has become. I want to come into, which I hope isn't an inappropriate question, which is about, it's directly related to gender, but also about values. When you were selling, you are a female founder of a business about gender pay disparity. Did you want to have a woman in charge of it at Relics, that it was carrying the baton? Was that a factor? And then closely related, did you think during that sales process that these are people who get the ethics and values of this and importance of this, not just a business able to use data and analytics to generate more profit?
Yeah, I mean, alignment on value was absolutely critical and very important. If we didn't have that, I don't think we would have sold. And a key component of it actually was I really wanted to know that Relics will go through a pay gap audit with GapSquare after acquisition. So that was like the entire company had to go and do that analysis, which they did in year one. So that was...
And how many thousands of people is that? Just
33,000 people.
In how many countries? Several?
Yeah.
Loads? Yeah. 33,000 people. Imagine that as an audit. And that was subsequent to the deal.
Yes.
But talk about, you're going to say about alignment of values and belief that they would, in a sense, carry the baton.
Yeah, it was very important, and actually it was very important to the team. After we sold, I was talking to the team, and because we were a lean, growing organization that was bootstrapping our way into growth, everyone was paid very little, and we were running on enthusiasm and a lot of excitement about how we can change the world and make it a better place. So when we sold, I was talking to the team, and I was saying, like, this is going to be great for everyone because your pay is going to double. You're going to get incredible pension. You're going to have private healthcare. You're going to have the opportunity to travel to different conferences and like really have colleagues all over the world. It's going to be great. And the thing that still stays with me till today is people looking at me and saying, if we wanted all of that, we would be working at PwC right now. But this is
sorry,
not.
Other companies are available.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah.
PwC are a perfectly good company to work
Yeah,
with.
yeah.
Yes, yeah, really.
They were saying we would be working for a corporate right now, but we're here because we really like what we do. We love waking up in the morning knowing that what we do is very impactful and actually has direct impact on someone's life. And we will stick around as long as that's what we continue to do, which was, yeah, great, yeah.
Which is a related question. Of those 10 or 9 other than you, how many did stick around and how many of them are now still there?
So within because then the GapSquare team ended up growing to about 70 people in New York, in London, and in Amsterdam. So it was quite a lot of people. Of the original 10, one person is still in that division. Others have moved into different Relics businesses because it's a big machine that does different things. And some people have moved on to go and work for startups again.
We will come on to your own startup very shortly, but one last for you. In terms of the sale, what sort of post-sale commitments did you agree to with Relics? Was there an earn-out? Was there a length of time?
There was an earn-out, and the way we wanted to make sure that it's not just tied to commercial objectives, because we didn't know how quickly things are going to move and how quickly we're going to integrate into their sales processes. So the earn-out piece we divided in two, and half of it was attached to delivering tech milestones, and half of it to commercial milestones. So yeah.
So. You've sold, you've had those post-sale commitments. What was the gap between your last time there and your first time with WorkVue?
I don't know how long it was because it was a blur, and I pretty much ended up saying yes to lots of things that seemed very exciting. So I thought, actually what I'm going to do is perhaps a portfolio career. And I left Relics in December, having Christmas off, and then in January I might have said yes and become a company director for way too many companies. But I think that was me having that sense of freedom, and I can do anything and I can do lots of things because and then slowly as I was doing that work, there was I knew that I needed to actually focus a bit more on something, and I knew that I'm not done with the mission around the gender pay gap because it's still there, and I knew that I still want to do something about it, so I started shifting towards WorkVue.
And WorkVue, give us the sum up of what WorkVue is and at what stage you are, and we'll then come into some of the learnings of the second time around.
So we are just under 1 year in. WorkVue does similar stuff to what GapSquare does, so looks at the gender pay gap, except our customer in this case is the employee. We want to empower women and anyone in work with more data about how much they should be paid, about their skills and the value of their skills, how they could earn more by moving into other occupations, other industries, or other companies. So really empowering people from the ground up to address this gap from this other side. I feel like I've spent about 10 years working with organizations and corporations and hundreds of businesses around the world, helping them understand their payroll and understand their data and how they pay their people and value their people. I want to focus now on the grassroots work and really empowering more people with more data from the other side. So that we can have this kind of push from both sides towards achieving parity.
So take two elements there. One, part of the impulse for selling to Relics was their ability to scale it on a much bigger basis and thereby have greater impact. And the other is, as a successful seller, you are able to, if you wish, to raise more finance and go faster earlier. Was that what happened with WorkVue?
No. So it's really interesting because I thought I've built a business, bootstrapped a business. I've successfully sold it. It was like an investor's dream, as someone who's actually able to bring a company to profitability and generate like genuine revenue into that tech company, and also exited into a trade. When I started WorkVue, I started having conversations with other founders who've exited their businesses, a lot of them men, and they were like, it was easy. I just walked into the room. I walked out with 4 million. It's like all you have to do is say you've sold your previous business to a FTSE 100. Like all you have to do is do that. It's not true. The biases.
Well, sorry, it's not true in your case, or for women. This point about.
It's much. It continues to be very difficult for women to raise investment in the tech space. So every year we have these reports from Atomico that look at the tech sector in Europe, and every year they remind us that only 2% of the funding in the tech space goes to female founders. To every £100 that gets invested into tech in the UK, only £2 go to female founders. And it's worth thinking in this context that a lot of that tech is health tech for women's healthcare. So even then, if you look at the founders who receive the funding for health tech for women's health, in most instances, they're male founders.
Here's a quick idea for a business. You've gender pay disparity when it comes to employment. What about funding gender disparity? You should do some analytical piece and say, look, this is the data. You are missing out on all of this opportunity because you're funding blokes.
Yeah.
Are you different way around. If you were able, and you may well be, of course, in due course, if you were able to raise a substantial amount of money, would you actually want to? And how do you think it would change the way that you were able to run the business, your own role, but of course what the business was able to do?
Yeah, so I think that's why I haven't actually gone full on in terms of raising this time around. I've had conversations with investors. I've had kind of just get a feel for the pitch. Let's see if we can have a conversation here. But I still look back at GapSquare and think not raising money is the best thing that happened to us, because it gave us the freedom and the flexibility to do whatever we wanted. It gave us that freedom and flexibility to enjoy our work and love what we do, and that's why the team loved what we were doing. Everyone was coming into work with a spring in their step because it was so much fun. We could reinvent what we do and how we do it just because we felt like it. And that has created that community and that enjoyment of work that you don't find elsewhere. And it is actually not necessarily available once you have investors on the team who are interested in different kind of metrics of success.
There was a line that came up at last night's EntreConf dinner that external investors, careful, they can make you do unnatural things, but or at least it can change the way you run a business, if not unnatural things. We'll come to a couple of audience questions, please. Put your hand up and we'll get a mic to you if you have questions for Zara. We'll then come on to this impulse about we go again. We will go again to questions. That's what we'll do. No, was a hand up in the middle, a tentative hand. Yeah, please. It will be with you in just a sec. And again, please say your name and company. Thank you.
Hi, it's Rob again. I forgot to tell you what I did before. I was in the aeronautical industry with ride-on suitcases, but we didn't involve technology. My second business, I'm going again, so I'm interested to find from you, when you did your last business, large language models weren't invented. How are you leveraging AI now?
And by the way, when you say ride-on, Trunky.
Yeah.
Trunky's found an amazing local, regional, national, international business, and delighted to have you here. Yeah, AI.
I mean, AI is everywhere, right? It was New York is covered in this billboard saying, "Why are you still hiring humans?" So from artisan AI. So yeah, there's a message there for all of us. We are looking at AI from from different perspectives a lot. So one is the impact of AI on work and people's pay, because that is having a significant impact on women's pay. So if you look at predictions around how work is going to change and tasks and skills within work is going to change over the next few years, as well as how industries are going to be shaped by AI, we're looking at an economy that is even more driven by male participation than it is now. So we're looking at how do we engage into that conversation and use data to address that.
So does that mean it's projected to get worse?
Yeah.
It's already bad and there's a problem, and it'll take 200 plus years, but it's going to get worse.
Yeah, so if you look at the recent World Economic Forum report on top jobs until 2030, and they produce a list of top 20 jobs on the rise and top 20 jobs on the decline. We're looking at a very male-dominated workforce in the next 5 years, because the jobs on the rise are around data science, where we have 90% men in those kind of roles in the UK alone. We're looking at farming, delivery drivers. A lot of those roles are very male-dominated, and the jobs on the decline are very female-dominated. So we have data clerks, we have bank tellers, we have shop floor assistants. So a lot of those roles are predicted to be phased out, and when we look at that disparity, it's quite big in terms of pay, in terms of what it's going to mean for what people do and how we do it. So we're looking at AI from that point of view. We're looking at also leveraging AI in our tech and in our solutions and how we deliver those solutions to people. The biggest challenge is the bias that we currently have in data, the bias that we currently have in available language models and how we use them. So there's a lot of complexities around there, but we do also want to make the most of it.
It's a great question, thank you. Time for one more if there is, otherwise I'll come to this point. Oh, sorry, I'll take the one at the back if that's okay. It is of course the furthest away for the mic. There we have it. Zara, I'll be coming on to about your mindset and your emotional state in We Go Again and that particular impulse and perhaps some learnings from it. Yes, please. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ailey McLachlan from Image Angel. The context of my question is that we sell technology to prevent non-consensual intimate image abuse on platforms. For GapSquare, I'm so fascinated. How do you sell technology that could potentially cost the company more money in the findings that they have, unless you have someone who is sort of like conscious and morals forward? A sort of greedy businessman doesn't want something that's going to ultimately cost them more money, right?
Well, but it may actually prevent more money if there are legal cases, I guess, if it's
Yes,
the regulatory
true.
environment is much stronger. But yeah.
So when we were GapSquare as a startup, our key message was around how much more you could make by actually addressing the pay gap. So we're developing return on investment cases that we're looking at how much more you could add to your bottom line, how much you can add to the GDP. Like, there were a lot of positive, empowering indicators. When we became part of Relics and we sat under the LexisNexis division, the message became more around risk mitigation, and that was around how much money we're going to help you not lose in employment tribunal. So those were the cases. I recently read this incredible book called Everything is Tuberculosis, which is like, why we're
happy
talking
subject.
about, yeah. But
Time read, was it?
it's the best book about inequality I've ever read, and actually doesn't mention inequality in its entirety. But there's a paragraph in there about how we have been distributing tuberculosis care and solutions based on return on investment, so it never reaches countries where there isn't a return on investment for pharmaceutical companies, for governments, or for our international organizations, and talks about how made me question why we actually even talk about return on investment when we're talking about someone's well-being, when we're talking about our health, when we're talking about our ambitions and aspirations as humans. So I'd like to spend the next 5 years maybe debunking some of that return on investment, because being a good, kind human shouldn't be about you also making a lot of money. It shouldn't be about you making money out of it as a key driver.
Interestingly, when you mentioned distribution of vaccines, please check out a company called Insilitech, who were one of our last year's next big things, a remarkable business, and particularly around the distribution of vaccines, essentially, to places, of course, most needed. I'm afraid we're going to close the session with the last couple of questions about, for you personally, the impulse to go again. Did you feel more confident, more powerful, more experienced, and it was, quote, easier to go again? And talk about some of the learnings that made it your approach, how it differed second time around.
Yeah, so I think it's easier and also harder, because in theory I don't have to. So it's like there's that pool, like I could be spending my time in a different way. But on the other hand, I'm still drawn to this area of helping create impact around fairness at work for men and women. So that wasn't going to go away anywhere. I did feel more confident. I can say, like, if before I could see the business 1 year in, I could see the business like how it's going to evolve in the next 12 months, in the next 24 months. Now I can see it I can clearly see how and why we would grow it in the next 10 years, for instance, and how we would have wider reach and how we commercialize and how we bring revenue. So definitely a lot more confidence around that. And the fact that I've stayed on after acquisition and have seen the scaling process definitely helps as well.
And for you, Zara, does We Go Again, starting a new business off the back of the success of the previous one, does We Go Again also apply to We Sell Again? Is sale baked into your thinking for WorkVue?
It was baked into my thinking with GapSquare. We had a little business plan canvas, and we had the target is that we would exit in 3 years' time. Who exits in 3 years' time? And we had even
companies backed by VCs usually. They've got short time horizons.
And then we had even some amounts that we thought we were going to sell for. This time around, I want to be open, and I think that we can be, as people, as entrepreneurs, as leaders, we can be a bit more creative around what exit means and how we drive companies to growth. So I really want to explore perhaps different models that we haven't done before.
Well, this has been fascinating. I did want to spend some time on the substance of the offer as well as the process of We Go Again. But on the latter point, I think that Kierkegaard line, you live your life forwards, but you understand it backwards, never more applies than it does with the company coming second time around. The learnings from previously, the desire, the opportunity, and the challenges and the rising challenges of disparity, to Rob's point, brought specifically into focus, not just societally, but by AI. But that looms, and it looms large for you. Please, for all of you, thank you so much to Zara Nanu for We Go Again, and all the very best with WorkVue. Thank you, Zara.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Thank you.